Hello, so this is going to be a video on a very strange Geiger counter. It is the East German RWA 72M or RWA 72K, it depends which configuration it's in. So as you can see, if it focuses, on the actual meter itself, it's called the RWA 72M. There's like lots of weird pictures on it, we'll get to that. And on the manual, it's the RWA 72K. And apparently what that is it refers to how this is being used, because this is quite a weird dosimeter. Oh, and before I go any further, this is the type of battery you want to power it. It isn't the exact model used, but it's the right voltage, it's 12 volts. So you get one of these, a 23A battery, you put some plastic spacers around it with some foil or whatever to hit the contact points, because the actual battery compartment in this is D-sized. But it takes a 12 volt battery to power it because it was designed to run on vehicle electric systems. I'm also going to be doing the entire video with the headset plugged in for it, so you can hopefully hear the clicking and alarm noises, because without that bit of it, this doesn't really do much. Without headphones in, all you have to look for is a little warning light on it. So what this counter is, essentially, is East Germany decided when they were obviously making a Geiger counter, was to make one, or a radiation detector, although this does work using Geiger millitubes. The idea with this was basically, rather than having what nearly every army at the time did, say the Western armies and the Soviet bloc, what most armies did was you had a personal dosimeter, so the type carried around by infantry, either the pen type ones or the things like DP5s, DP66s, DP2s, the type of units that would give you a radiation reading in Rontgens per hour as you carried it around. And then what you'd also have is vehicle-based dosimeter units, where you'd have a tube like that would either be mounted inside or outside the vehicle, and then you'd basically have your control unit that gave you the measurements and your power supply and everything on the inside of the vehicle, where it could be read by the person, you know, sitting next to it. So, say for example the DP3, the Polish DP68, those sort of things. The East Germans decided they wanted to combine everything into one, so I'll try and show you a picture of that in the manual. So what you have is basically a vehicle-based dosimeter that I assume when it's all plugged in and working in a vehicle, it works like any other vehicle-based dosimeter. You have a control panel which has a couple of knobs on it and radiation sort of reading ranges. And then what basically happens is once you, you know, you can see what the radiation is based on the alarm going off, or the, what needle goes to on your little sort of display unit. However, the East Germans decided rather than developing a different unit, they wanted this one to work as well independently when carried by infantry, hence why there's a strap on it and a headphone socket. So how this works is, I will demonstrate this on the video, but you have this really over-the-top clicking thing, where you click the dial around to different numbers. That's the bit there, I don't know why you can see that, where it says 0 and K. So this does, I can't remember the exact range, it's something like 0.2 millirontgen to 300 rontgens per hour, I think is the entire thing it does. And how this then works as an infantry one, because there's no display unit on the actual thing, is basically you twist this, and if it exceeds the radiation of the alarm threshold, it buzzes, clicks, and makes a red light appear on there. So let me first show you some of the stuff in the booklet and the device up closer, like interacting with it. And then we'll start setting it off and see how good it actually is. Okay, so here's your unit. So it kind of looks a bit like an RPG sort of, you know, tube, recoilless rifle type tube, but a lot smaller obviously, but that's the kind of design of it. The headphones literally just plug in on one side. For the video bit now, I'll unplug the headphones just so it's easier to show this without tangling any wires. The headphones, when they're not in use, sit in, I've got it quite tangled, but when they're not in use, these headphones, they sit in one of those literally NBC pouches. It's made from, the straps of this are made from the same material as the East German NBC suits. So the headphones just fit in there. At least they actually fit quite well in there, unlike some of the counters. And yeah, it's a single speaker with a two-prong style thing. This is actually a lot more durable than some of the other Warsaw packed ones. So okay, here's your meter. So essentially, you've got these silly little pictures on it. Let's hold it up the right way. It's quite hard to show on here because of the, you know, spherical shape of it, or cylindrical shape I should say. So it's got first some pictures there, and what these are saying is these are your radiation warning levels apparently. So where it says 50 millirontgens per hour, it's saying if it exceeds that, it's not safe for these things. We'll get onto the pictures in a minute. It's quite confusing. Then there's 200 rontgens per hour, and I think it's saying then oh sorry, that's 200 millirontgens per hour. It's saying, you know, if the reading exceeds that and you're in these things, that's bad. And then it's got 0.4 rontgen an hour for rockets and some other stuff. Again, that confuses things on this, but that doesn't have much to do with how this actually works. So how this works is that 2410 is also the attenuation factor. That's just saying, you know, if you're in a vehicle, divide what your reading is by 2 or whatever if it's on the outside, but we won't go into too much of that. That's just sort of physics and calculations. So what you do is here, you can change your reading. So this goes all the way from, let's go backwards. So that's, you've got a little button here, that's the circuit test. So you can hopefully maybe see that's lighting up slightly. So yeah, so K is circuit test. If I had the headphones in, then it would just do some clicks or whatever. So 0.2 millirontgen, that's the lowest radiation range. And then it goes all the way. Like I said, this has so many settings. Still going to 300 rontgen per hour. So yeah, this is stupidly slow to adjust because you basically have to keep twisting the dial to each of the sections you want. So let's put it back on its minimum setting, 0.2 rontgen per hour, or sorry, 0.2 millirontgen per hour. And let's plug the headphones back in. So what happens is, now it's on that mode, it is permanently on. It's not like I have to keep holding that button down. The button's just for the backlight, or if you're doing a circuit test, I think, to make a noise go through it. I'll plug the headphones in so as soon as it starts working, we're aware of it. There we go. So where it did that little beep, yeah, there we go. So what's happening now is with background radiation, this is actually a Geiger counter. It's got Geiger tubes in it. So every now and then it will click, or make a little buzz, and that's it just clicking in the background as a Geiger counter would click. When it will sound an alarm and a red light will come on here if it exceeds the radiation level. Let's just try that on K. Sorry, okay. Oh, that just, yeah, that little red light and that different beep that now and again comes on. Yeah, that's the alarm setting, if that's visible there. So anyway, let's pop back to 02. And now let's have a zoomed in look at the manual so I can tell you, sort of show you what I think this was designed to do, and if you read German or you know want to Google Translate any of it, you can do. I had to actually run I translated a bit with the very limited German I have, and then Google translated some of the bits of this just to find out, you know, how to run it on a 12-volt battery and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the manual so we can sort of see different setups of this thing. Okay, so here's the manual, so let's open that up. And you can see it's made with communist-era staples because they're rusty. Am I reading that backwards at the moment? No. So the first few pages are just, I guess, for putting readings in. Right, so what we'll go to is this picture here is kind of interesting. So this shows you what it would look like if the entire unit was set up with all the attachments. So that would be the bit you'd have inside the vehicle, which I guess either... I don't think there's a screen on there, so I assume that that can't even give you actual readings with a direct number either. It's, I guess, again, just like a twisty thing that's more like this again. So you set your threshold and then you have it set up. I imagine the alarm's a lot louder when it's in the vehicle. The frame thing is basically, it's quite cool. The idea of the frame is so you don't twist any of the cables with it or, you know, do anything like that. Is the electric circuit on this works. Here and here is where it contacts. Get that frame zoomed out a bit. Here and here. So basically the power connectors, it sits on the frame in a specific way. It mounts to the frame so it doesn't twist around, and then you know you obviously then control it not by twisting the dial at that end but by adjusting it there. So it's basically showing that's the vehicle based system that you'd have in your vehicle wherever else. You've got your cables running to its mount in it. You know, 12-volt thing. I think that's where I read 12 volts. I thought, oh yeah, 12-volt vehicle. Then it's showing different types of headphone setups or whatever you can have with it. So that's that. And then again, that's it with the sort of infantry version as we're using it. And we're using that version with a headphone. I think, if I remember right, one is a power adapter, or it's for mounting the sort of speaker to the something else. Yeah, sorry, I think that's a speaker for vehicles, that one. So rather than it being a headset on one person, it's like you'd, you know, screw that onto the wall of that little sort of external speaker, and that goes in the same headphone socket, and then you get a louder sort of beep. Anyway, that's an up-close view of the system where it mounts to, so that's like the mounting bracket for it with the electrical supply, and yet there's that thing. So it looks like it's just alarm threshold. So again, it's not as good as anything that gives you a precise reading, because it doesn't actually, although in theory it does take a reading, it's just there's no way of displaying it from this unit. So there's that. So there's some schematics for it there. I won't go through all this in detail. Again, if people want me to up close photograph or scan in some of the pages, I can do that, and it's better. But basically, yeah, it's all principles of operation, some stuff how radiation works. Here's the weird thing about different levels of radiation that you shouldn't exceed or something if you're in there. And the bread in a house is meant to be a kitchen, by the way. I think a gun probably means your gun shouldn't be more than 50 milliroentgen per hour level of radiation. There's a little GP5 look, or Shum 41, whatever it is. That's kind of cool. Socks, I guess your socks or boots shouldn't be radioactive, but yeah, it's some of the manual and some of the stuff printed on there is more like basic radiation safety warning stuff. You know, like if you are a pleb and you don't know physics of it, this is how the radiation works. So anyway, I'm going to plug the speaker back in. I was going to keep that in there, but then I realised it just keeps beeping anyway, where even when it's on K, unless you put it in the off mode, because annoyingly, on the lowest radiation range, there isn't an offsetting. You have to twist. There's a couple of offsettings as you go through. So if I want to turn it off, I have to twist it up to this bit, to the 0, or the O, and that's the off, and then K is test again. So anyway, let's put it back on the lowest radiation range, 0.2 milliroentgen per hour. Let's get a check source, and then I can show you it actually going off. So the reading end is this end. The two Geiger Müller tubes are basically in a little pot in this end. I'm not going to take this apart because this is all properly sealed and it's working, so I don't want to break it. There is a video on YouTube where somebody dismantles one, I think a broken one. So I'm going to mostly try and keep it in frame where you can see the warning light where that would come on, and the end bit there. So I'll adjust the camera and get a sample ready. And then what we're going to do once we've played about, because this doesn't really read beta, I think the tube inside the lower range one can read beta radiation. The problem is, because of the metal housing, you're basically cutting out any beta radiation's chance of getting through, because there's the metal housing on there, then there's like a container with, you know, stuff to shock impact protect the Geiger tubes. So at the end of the day, basically, it doesn't read beta radiation, it only reads gamma and X-rays because of the fact that, you know, how the tubes are housed in there. So what we're going to do, so I'll get the camera set up in a minute after a cut, and then we can put some samples next to it, and then we'll test the X-ray function to see, you know, how well it works on the higher radiation ranges. Right, so we've got it on the 0.2 milliroentgen setting. It's already picking my sample up slightly from here at a distance because it's on the most sensitive setting. What I've got is a bit of radium in plastic casing with tape around it, so it's not leaking radon gas and it's safe to touch. Well, not safe as in it's still giving off radiation, but you know what I mean, it's not going to contaminate my skin with radium paint flecks and that. So let's push this in closer to the end. There we go. And you can see that. Red light begins to flash and it makes the alarm sound. So now let's pull that sample away. And then what we do if we wanted to set it to a higher radiation range is twist that now to say, let's do 0.6 milliroentgen per hour. Because the sample's definitely stronger than that, it's just how well it picks it up from this. So then put that back there. There we go. So now it should be reading 0.6 milliroentgen per hour or more. And again, the button just lights up the display. I'll just turn the light off so you can see that actually. So yeah, the display, yeah, you can probably see slightly it's lighting up again. The sort of reflections and all of that on there make it a bit harder to see, but yeah, you can see it lights up. Again, it's just so you can read it in the dark basically, or set it in the dark. So now let's set it to a higher range. Let me flick the light back on. Oh, is the bulb blown? No, good. Right, so now let's try setting it, say, to 1 full milliroentgen per hour. Oh, it doesn't do 1 full milliroentgen, it's a 0.9 and 1.2. Okay, so 1.2 milliroentgen per hour. Yeah, that's still setting it off. Again, it's, like I said, so we'll set it a bit higher, but I imagine soon it will stop. Right, let's try 3 milliroentgen per hour. Right, hope that hasn't got in the way. I was just hanging the headphones on here so it was louder for the thing. So here you can hear it clicking like an actual Geiger counter. Because what's going on here is, because it's not meeting the alarm threshold, you're just hearing the Geiger noise, not the alarm noise. Now, this is actually definitely more than 3 milliröntgen per hour, this source. But what's happening here... Ah, there we go, that's actually the most sensitive spot for where that tube is there, look. Yeah, what's going on here is, because the housing reduces so much of the radiation coming through it, in terms of like softer sort of bits of radiation, like say the beta radiation, that cuts the reading down. But so let's put it now up to say 10 milliröntgen per hour. Put it on that bit. As you can see, it's not setting it off now. So, now let's test if it actually would work properly against a high gamma sort of exposure thing. So what we'll do is we'll get out the Chinese death ray and we'll, from a safe distance, blast it and start seeing if it sets the alarm off. Oh, and just to quickly point out, look, there's the scary DP2 control source, but as I said, because it doesn't pick up beta radiation, it's picking up a bit of braking radiation going through there, but that's still not setting it off. So yeah, don't rely on this to pick up beta radiation. Now, as you can see, the Chinese death ray is set up in a perfectly capable place to blast this. So what I'll do is I'll put the headphones on the unit in a place where the speaker on the camera, where it doesn't get in the way too much. So we're currently set to, I think it's 10 milliröntgen per hour, aren't we? And that's definitely going to be exposed to more than this. But I'm going to shoot this off at a distance with the remote, and then I'll come back and we can adjust the ranges when it's not firing. So bear with me a moment. So I have my remote now, and I will be walking back quite a distance and standing behind a bit of concrete before firing this off. So let's see if the alarm goes off and if you get lots of static on the camera. Here we go. Right, to me it sounds like that was definitely picking up the radiation going off. I could hear the beep, 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 even at a distance. So now, let's set this to, say, 100 milliröntgen per hour, which again, it definitely should be exposed to more than that, but let's test if it actually goes off at that level. Because again, lots of these are very soft X-rays that come off this death ray. So let's test it at this level. Yeah, sounds like it's still going off. So now let's say put it up to, can we get a 1 Röntgen per hour setting on there? 1 Röntgen per hour. Okay, so it's now at 1 Röntgen per hour. So that was still in frame, yeah. Yeah, just to show you on there. Although again, it's not going to be very easy to read, but you can hopefully see it's at 1 Röntgen per hour. So yeah, the black range is Röntgens per hour, so 1 on the black range, Röntgen per hour. Let's go. Right, okay, that sounds like it's still working, although it didn't sound like it was beeping quite as frequently. So now, because I don't want to keep doing this over and over, let's just twist this up, say, to... Shall we do 3 Röntgen for a laugh, even though I know it's going to exceed this? And then, in a bit, we'll have a message from Dyatlov regarding this level thing. But yeah, so now it's on 3 Röntgen per hour. After that, I'll probably jump it up quite a bit. So, let me get my remote. Right, that was interesting. So at 3 Röntgen per hour, despite the fact it's being exposed to more radiation and that, the X-rays aren't hard enough to penetrate the housing of this unit. So that is a bit of a flaw of this unit if you're using it for personal readings, is you're going to be exposed, completely disregarding beta radiation as well. Soft X-rays don't penetrate this unit very well. So you could be exposed to a hell of a lot more radiation than you think you're being exposed to, because this radiation meter doesn't have a readable dial on it. And you have to twist it every time you want to make it go off. But yeah, there you go. As seen, it works still. It's just not the best unit in the world because it's over-engineered by Germans. As you saw before, there's so many settings you can twist it to. And yeah, like saying, it works as a unit, but obviously it has several flaws with the actual design of it. So yeah, an interesting thing. But yeah, like I said, it's a product of the Cold War, product of its time, and I'll finish this video off by letting Dyatlov have a little message.
This stupid East German dosimeter called the RWA 72M Geiger Counter is one of the worst fucking designs I've ever seen. Who the hell thought twisting a fucking knob was a good idea every time you want a radiation reading?
Not great, not terrible.